something like this can be made very easily and very simply with minimal, absolutely minimal modeling skills. Now, I'm putting these on these plastic bases, which are from the long out of print game called Heroscape. But that's only because Heroscape was and still is my go-to casual tabletop wargaming system. You can base these runes on anything you like. Now the size of it, you'll notice this is quite large. It's quite large because the models that come with Heroscape are significantly larger than your average, say, Warhammer or something like that. These models, a human being or humanoid character is about 30 to 35 millimeters, and you quite often get slightly larger miniatures which can run anything up to 35 to 40 millimeters or even larger. And I wanted my ruins to provide a blocked line of sight, put these together, when the Heroscape scale models were on either side of it. But the beauty of this system is you can build your walls as high as you like. And for the runes themselves, it's entirely made out of this stuff. Simple 5mm foam board. So the heart of this very, very simple system is to begin with your scraps of foam board, cut them into rectangles which are a multiple of 10mm widths. That makes it nice and easy. If everything is roughly made on centimeters, then everything will fit. So you can see here I've just drawn some lines, and with my sharp knife I've cut out a bit of structure there. Okay, adding that to another piece that I've made in a similar sense, just bits of cutouts. And here, I don't know if you can see, but on the other side I've just roughly sketched out some lines, and with my X-Acto knife I've cut a kind of a curve there. It doesn't have to be too accurate, as long as these heights are accurate to the centimetre, then you'll be absolutely fine. As I say, I've made this one 4 centimetres here and 5 centimetres here, but you could make them smaller if your figures are smaller. To stick them together, all I've done is taken a hot melt glue gun and just run a bead of glue down the side. I'm not actually doing it here, but I'll show you how it's done. Run a bead of glue down to edges and then stick it together onto whatever your base is. It could be just simply a piece of cardboard, temporary base for whatever you're going to stick it to afterwards. Okay, that is the framework to which we're going to add these things. Little bricks, and it works like cladding, a bit like cladding a house. Yeah, all we're going to do is take that framework and we're going to stick these little blocks onto it like this. You get the idea. Yeah, to simply make up the texture of. So now we're going to start making these little cladding blocks. Okay, it's simulating a granite block, and we're going to do that with just the 5mm foam board and one of these sharp knives. Now, before I begin, I'm going to give you for free the absolute best tip ever in relation to these knives, and it might sound crazy, but it's really, really worth it. If you take nothing away from this video but the one tip that I'm about to give you, please take it. Ignore the rest. This is really important, and it involves one of these. And the tip is very simple. Before you start using this, put the sticking plaster on your thumb before you hurt it, not afterwards. Before. Put the sticking plaster on your thumb before you start working with the knife. It's a simple tip. please take that tip away, because what we're going to do is we're going to slice the cardboard off this foam by cutting towards us, hence the importance of wearing that plaster. Now, if you're lucky, you start to strip the card off the foam board and it will just come in one piece very, very easily, like that. Depends on the manufacturer of the foam board. Some of them slightly different texture inside, and when you start to take the cardboard off, yeah, it kind of comes, but it leaves some of the card behind, and you have to dig a bit deeper into it, yeah, to get the card off. But it doesn't matter, because we're looking for this rough texture anyway. That's what we actually want. Okay, and this is why I say there's no real skill involved here. I'm protecting my thumb, yeah, and cutting the card away from the foam, often quite roughly, but it will come. As I say, it depends on, you know, the individual manufacturer of the foam board, how easy that will be. If it's the stuff where the card comes away dead easy, then all you have to do then is just roughen up this texture with your sharp knife. And that is the basis for a cladding block. But before we cut it into shorter lengths, what I'm going to do is just run the sharp blade down the edge. Again, digging in a millimetre, maybe 2 millimetres. The rougher you do this, the better, right? Because we want that texture. Don't want it fluffy, dig out any weird bits. But roughly 45-degree angle. Run it down one side. Oops. And then run it down the other side, digging out chunks in a very random way. I think that's got most of it. I'll dig away these fluffy bits, because granite isn't fluffy. There we go. So there's the strip. The almost last stage is to then take your cutting board, which in my case is conveniently already ruled into centimetres, and just slice off a 2 centimetre blocks from your strip, and maybe some 1 centimetre blocks as well, because you're probably going to need those. As I say, that's the penultimate step. It only remains then to just slice down the front face on the short edge, just to finish off. And there we have it. One granite facing block. And you just make lots and lots and lots of these, until eventually you've got a box full. So I'm going to start at this edge here, the lower level, and put the first course of block work all the way around, and then build up to the second, third and fourth courses. So here's my first block. Just put a little dab of hot melt glue on the back and stick it on like so. Second one fits just the same way. Now of course I've got a kind of a gap here, so I'm going to have to take one of my small blocks and offer it up, see how big it should be. Will one of these fit in? Yeah, just about. But the trick here is that because this is an internal corner, I'm going to have to use my sharp knife to cut a 45-degree angle right through so that the next brick can fit against it. I'll just do that on this board here. Okay, so you see how that's now chamfered all the way through, 45 degrees. I'm using my tweezers because these pieces are getting a bit small now. Pop that block into there. Doesn't matter how rough this is, the rougher the better. Okay, so similarly the next piece is going to have to be chamfered off at 45 degrees. Little blob of hot melt, push it into the corner. There we are, we've almost finished the first course. Now we've come to an edge. Now the way we deal with this is there's one of two ways. If I just move that aside for a minute, we can either do it in this sort of alternating pattern, yeah, so the pattern of alternation of bricks goes all around the end, or we can just cut the blocks flush with a view to later on putting sort of capping stones to disguise the interior structure. I like to do the capping stones for arches, got glue on the fingers, and the alternate approach for the other ends. So that's what I'm going to do with this one as well. So I'm going to take a block, just measure up, okay, and cut it flush to the end of the wall. Yeah. Chamfer that edge very slightly to match the other ones, and I stick that on. Little blob of glue. Doesn't matter whether I put the glue on the wall or on the block, I get the same effect. Okay, so the next block is going to be on the left, and same technique. Cut it to size, chamfer the edge slightly, and a little blob of glue, and attach it the right way up. And that means that when I put my next block on, it will match up here. But as you can see, hopefully you can see here, there'll be a little bit of card visible on this next block, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to take my knife and just lift the cardboard off about 5mm of that block. So now I've shaved both sides, and you can see that will look slightly better as it goes around the corner. So now I've got 3 courses of the granite block work on, and I'm reaching the curved part of the half archway now, and this is where I'm going to start putting the glue on the structure and adding the pieces, because I'm going to let the pieces overlap and cut them to the shape after the glue's thoroughly dried. So I'm just going to pop a little glue on there, and now coming back to this curve section for the half arch, I need to stop now because it's time to trim this section back with my X-Acto knife. So there we are, 5 in total courses of brickwork. Now, because we've been a bit slapdash in putting these on, a couple of things have happened. Some of the areas are a little bit raised where the framework is showing through the blockwork, and of course as they stacked up, some of the blocks are a little bit proud or whatever. So it's up to you whether you want to do this, but I like to just trim off some of the areas where things haven't quite lined up. So the stones that are going to go on top of the structure here, I call them capstones. I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, it suffices. They're made in the very same way that you made the original facing blocks, but this time the strip is a little wider because it has to fit across that section there. So 12 to 13 millimeters is a perfect width for your strip, and I like to cut the blocks into a length of about 15 millimeters because that doesn't match the 10 or 20 millimeter blocks that we've got on the ruins, so it'll create a kind of non-matching effect, a bit of a random effect on the top, which I like. The other thing to note is that not only here have I chamfered off the edges on the top surface, I've also removed the card from the back, again by slicing with the sharp knife. And that's how we create these individual capstones. So you just go along, use your whole strip and create enough stones to put across the top of your structure. Now this is optional, but I have deliberately made not quite enough capstones to cover the whole of the structure. And that's because I'm going to leave some of these areas here to be covered by the scatter, to represent the fact that some of these blocks have fallen off to the ground. So that way I can reuse some of the offcuts and bits that I sliced off and didn't need before, and they will become sort of scenic bits on the floor to represent the fallen capstones. So I'll now go ahead and glue these on. So it only remains then, in terms of building the structure, to just finish off this arch, because again, as with the top, it's currently just exposing the framework which we want to hide. And the way to do curved shapes like this is to cut capstones but just make them thinner, the same with 12, 13 millimeters, depending on how much you've carved off your blocks, but just cut the capstones to half the size of the ones you used on the top. And while I say you don't really need any modelling skills for this approach, because of the size of these blocks, size of my banana fingers, this is not the easiest part. It's a little bit fiddly. So I'm just going to glue up the arch and use a pair of tweezers to attach the blocks. There's the finished structure. It's now only painting and decorating, which is not the purpose of this video, but if you want to stick with me, then what I will do just finally is show you one of my own really cheap and cheerful tricks for creating this sort of structure in the corner of the wall that makes the whole thing look, you know, kind of centuries old. Very cheap, very simple way to do this. To create this effect, I need the little offcuts and bits and pieces that I've kept from the process of building the ruin, something to mix in, a matchstick to do the mixing, some PVA craft glue, and my own personal recipe, coarse rubble. Let me just show you what this is. You can see it's a mixture of bits of gravel, bits of this stuff, which is offcuts from the kind of plastic sprues that wargaming models come with, bits of stones, anything, and the secret ingredient, this, which is just cellulose based cat litter. Okay, and that's my favourite coarse rubble. And all I do is take the craft glue, put plenty in, and using my matchstick just mix the whole thing up to make like a porridge, making sure there's sufficient glue on everything. There we go, perfect. It looks like kind of kind of muesli and yogurt kind of texture, I suppose. Yep. And then it's very, very easy to then just take a spatula and just shove this stuff into the crevices. And now that the coarse rubble has dried, it's time to just place some slabs to look as if they've fallen off the top of the structure. There we are. I'm not going to put any more basic structure onto it now. We're into the painting stage. You may notice that I've just masked off the edge because these are HeroScape bases and the interlocking system's quite sensitive. I don't want glue or paint or anything running over the edge of the base because it'll interfere with how efficiently the tiles interlock. And here are the finished ruins, fitting in with some more HeroScape scenery and some models. Thanks for watching. I hope you have great fun building ruins this cheap and cheerful way. I'm Peter Vodden, the Digital Tinkerer. You can find me at the links on the next screen.